Hey everybody, welcome back to our final video series for this semester. This is the last 2-hour video, instructional video for ESL Ventures Level 3. And in this video series, we are going to continue to continue and complete the Unit 5 review. And then we're going to do some more review using stories as examples and do some exercises around those stories for the different tenses that we've studied so far. Alright, so hopefully that will help us to get a real world a way of using English in those different tenses. Alright. So for now, let's continue on with finishing up Unit 5. Alright, so if you remember, Unit 5, we talked about, the topic of Unit 5 was review, of the Unit 5 review was around town. Okay, and more specifically, it was community events. Alright, so things that we do in the community. Alright, and if you remember in our student book on page 58, right, we were looking at this picture here, these sets of pictures, at 5 pictures, and we were looking at Wen and Mei, right, and they have a son, Chen, and they were trying to think about what they were going to do for the weekend, right? So they did some searching and they found out that they could go to a concert, outdoor concert. They could go to like a botanical gardens, a gardens type of area. They could go to a museum, and then they could also go to a book reading in the library. Okay, so these are examples. Excuse me. These are examples of community events. Okay, the community events are things that we can do within our community, right? That will either educate us or entertain us, like concerts, right? Or provide us a place to meet other people, right? So this is a place, the book story, the storytelling picture, right, at the library, right? This is a place where we can learn, we can be entertained, and we can also meet people. All right. So that is what we're getting into. All right. So let's continue on with Lesson F. Okay, so in Lesson F, we were talking about verbs plus infinitives and verbs plus gerunds. Okay, so verbs and infinitives and verbs and gerunds. All right, so let's look at how they want us to use these. In our student book, page 69, we see here in Grammar Connections, an infinitive is to plus the base form of the verb. Okay. Infinitives often follow verbs that talk about future plans. A gerund is the base form of the verb plus ing. Gerunds often follow verbs that talk about preferences. Okay. Both infinitives and gerunds can follow some verbs. Alright, so let's break this down. An infinitive is the base form of the verb, right? Okay, so let's look at that. So in our column here where it says verbs plus infinitives, verbs and infinitives, right? An infinitive would be study, right? That is the base form of the verb. To study is the complete infinitive, right? So an infinitive is to plus the base form of the verb. To study would be the complete infinitive. To go, right? Go is the base form of the verb go. So to go is the complete infinitive, all right? Some verbs that go in front of infinitive would be intend, right? Because intend talks about future plans, all right? So anytime you think about future plans and then you see to and then the base form of the verb, we're looking at infinitives, all right? So let's look at some of the verbs that help us to understand that we're looking at infinitives. Some of those verbs are decide, need, refuse, intend, plant, and want. All right. So any of these verbs we could probably put in here, right, instead of intend, and then make to plus the base form of the verb, and now we have an infinitive. All right, that talks about future plans. We decide to study, right? Or actually decided, right? We decided to study tonight. We needed to study tonight. We refused to study tonight. We intend to study tonight. We plan or planned to study tonight. We want or wanted to study tonight. And then the same here. We need to go home. We can take any of these verbs and put it in the place of need. And as long as we have to go, or to plus the base form of the verb, we now have an infinitive. Okay, let's look at gerunds. A gerund is the base form of the verb plus ing. That is pretty simple. We've done this before, right? Gerunds are a base form of the verb plus ing, and then it creates a noun, right? For instance, exercising, right? Exercising is the base form of the verb exercise plus ing. It now becomes a noun. It becomes a thing, okay? It becomes a sport or something that we do. That is, it becomes a noun, right? I don't want to confuse you with something that we do, because that would be a verb. A noun is an actual, the name, let's say, the name of the exercise, right? So when we have the gerund, right, we have some verbs that go with our gerunds, because we only use gerunds when we talk about preferences, things that we like or dislike, right? So when we have a sentence like Thomas dislikes, right, that's his preference. He dislikes exercising. You know, maybe Pam might like exercising. This is Thomas's preference, all right? We can take any of these words here and insert them instead of dislikes. And as long as we have the base form of the verb plus ing following it, we now have a complete gerund. Okay, so Thomas dislikes exercising. Thomas avoids exercising, right? Thomas enjoys exercising. Thomas misses exercises. Thomas finishes exercising, and Thomas suggests exercising. All right. Verbs plus infinitives or gerunds. This is where both infinitives and gerunds can follow some verbs. And you know, the way they write this, I'm not really a fan of how they wrote this, because they say some verbs, but they don't really give a good list of all the verbs that this could be, right? So it kind of leaves you wondering which verbs can we use, what can't we use, not really sure. So since this is not a list of all the verbs, this will have to do to give us an idea of the verbs that we can use. All right. I like to cook, right? So here, to cook, this would be our infinitive, right? Like is a preference, so we just have to be careful, right? Like is something that we can use with gerunds too. So here we have I like cooking. So now we show the preference I like, and then cooking is cook plus ing, our gerund. All right. So two ways to write this. I like to cook. I like cooking. All right. One way is an infinitive. I like to cook. The other way is the gerund. I like cooking. All right. What you can also do is scan this barcode, and this will help you, should help you, to by giving you a short video, so you can watch how they use this in a little bit more detail, and then you can go over it and over it again if you need to. All right. So let's look on page 64 in our workbook. All right. That's our white and green book. And let's try to put these two together. All right. So we've got infinitives and we've got gerunds. So we need to work on some exercises to better understand them by using them. All right. Number 1, it says read the questions, look at the announcements, then fill in the correct answers. Before we fill in the correct answers, let's look at the announcements. All right. So the first one is International Fair, right? Food and music from 20 different countries. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the community center. Free admission. The next one is animal movies. Educational movies for, educational movies, fun for children and adults. Wednesday, September 19th at 5 p.m. East Riverside Public Library. No admission fee. The next one is Nature Tour. Have you joined the Friends of Mission Park yet? Come for an easy guided walk around the park on Sunday. Meet at the Information Center at noon. Tickets, $3 for adults, $2 for children. And then the last announcement. Community barbecue. Have you seen your friends and neighbors lately? Then join us for then join us for burgers and all the fixins. This Sunday, 11 to 3. All you can eat meal ticket is $7. Okay, for this one, the word fixins. This is we don't say this up north. I hear this a lot in the South, so I think it's a Southern term. I don't think I've ever heard it out in the West either. So I believe this is just a Southern term, and it just means all the sides that go along with the meal. So for the burgers, it would be lettuce, tomatoes, French fries, beans, anything that would go on the burger, and anything that's like immediately around the burger, maybe like pickles or something like that. Alright, so that's what fixins means. Alright, so let's look at our questions here. So the first one is done for us, right? At which event can you get some exercise? And they have already answered this for us, and they say nature tour. So if we look at our nature tour here, it talks about come for an easy guided walk around the park on Sunday. So this is where we could get some exercise. I also believe that we could get some exercise from the food and music, right? Because with music you probably want to dance and things like that. So they chose nature tour because of the word walk in there. There is no specific information about exercise and international fair. So we'll stick with the nature tour for the first one. So now let's take some time to pause the video and answer 2 through 6. Alright, and then we'll come back and I'll share my answers, and then hopefully we had the same answers. Alright, so let's pause the video now and let's do 2 through 6. Okay, so hopefully you've had enough time to finish 2 through 6 using our 4 announcements here. So let's look at some of the answers here. Which event starts at 10 o'clock a.m. on Sunday? For that one, I chose the International Fair, right? Because International Fair starts Saturday at 10 a.m. and it also starts on Sunday at 10 a.m. Alright, so for number 2, I chose C, International Fair. Number 3, which event is the most expensive? Okay, so for this one, I chose D, the community barbecue. Alright, because International Fair has free admission, so that's free. Animal Movies has no admission fee, which is free. The Nature Tour costs $3 for adults, $2 for children. And the community barbecue, you can get an all-you-can-eat meal ticket for $7. So $7 is the most expensive one. D, community barbecue. Number 4, which events are free? Alright, so we just went over that, right? So International Fair, free. Animal Movies, free, right? So for that, I chose C, Animal Movies and International Fair. Number 5, which event does not take place on the weekend? Okay, so for that one, I chose B, Animal Movies, right? Animal Movies are on Wednesdays, all right? So Wednesday here for Animal Movies, excuse me, International Fair, Saturday and Sunday. Nature Tours on Sunday, and the community barbecue is on Sunday, all right? So for that one, B, Animal Movies. And then number 6, which statement is true? Alright, so which one is true? And for these, I chose you can eat food at the community barbecue and International Fair. D. Alright, so obviously community barbecue is for food, right? And then International Fair, food and music. Alright, so for that reason I chose D. Alright, so these are my answers, and hopefully you got the same. If not, let's go over them. Go over the announcements again and see if we can find these answers. All right. So now let's move on to page 65. 65 in our workbook. We can start with number 2. Complete the sentences with an infinitive or a gerund. All right. The first one is done for us. I've already finished reading the story. The word they want us to use is read, so that's the base form of the verb, right? And they want us to see how we use it in this sentence. Do we use it as an infinitive or a gerund? And here they said that we should use it as a gerund. I've already finished reading the story. If we said I've already finished to read the story, that would be an infinitive. That doesn't make sense here, right? So they correctly used the gerund. I've already finished reading the story. All right. So now let's take some time to pause the video and complete 2 through 8, and then we'll come back and I will share my answers with an explanation. All right. Let's pause the video now and do that.